What is going on, everybody? Today we have NFL Mock Draft 8.0 on the slate. The NFL Draft is 1 week away. Yes, time really does fly. We're only a week away. Today's mock draft will be like the other ones I've done as of recent, 3 rounds with trades. And again, this is predicting the pick, not what I would do. I've laid out a little schedule just to see what the rest of draft season will look like for all you guys. So Sunday, I will be doing my annual 7-round mock draft. There will be no trades because that would be too chaotic, but 7 full rounds doing the entire draft. Then on Tuesday, I will be revealing my big board. Wednesday, I will do a what I would do mock, so putting myself in the shoes of the GMs. And then on Thursday, the day of the draft itself, it's going to be 1 round with trades. And then Sunday, I will be doing draft grades. So that's what the schedule for the rest of draft season looks like. A lot of content here this next week and a half, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So before we get to the actual mock draft itself, let's talk about the trades involving current NFL players first. I've had a bunch of different Orlando Brown trades the past few months, but I have him going to a new team this time, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this makes a lot of sense. The Colts haven't been necessarily over-aggressive in the offseason, and I think they are willing to trade draft picks for really good established young players. They did it last year in DeForest Buckner. That move so far has proven to be a really good one for the Colts, and I could see them doing it again here with Orlando Brown. I think the price for Brown would be a little bit smaller than it is for Buckner, so I had the Colts actually receiving a future third-round pick along with Brown for the 21st overall selection. For Baltimore, I don't think this is a bad move. Orlando Brown clearly doesn't really want to stick around because he wants to play left tackle. So either you get a compensatory third-round pick out of him, or you can get this first-rounder. So the Ravens now have 2 first-rounders this year. I think this is a pretty good move for both sides. I've talked about possible Orlando Brown trades, but I have not had one involving Jamison Crowder, and I think this makes a lot of sense. There have been rumors that the Jets could be looking to move on from Crowder. He only has 2 more years left on his deal, and he has been a pretty good player for them when he stays healthy. He was a little bit banged up last year, and I think the Cleveland Browns are a team who might want to add that one final weapon for the offense. So I had the Jets receiving a third-rounder for the Browns, pick 89. Cleveland owns 89 and 91, so keep that in mind. And the Browns will also be receiving a future 5th-rounder along with Crowder. I think this is a fine trade for both sides, and don't worry, Jets fans, you will get your new slot receiver in this mock draft, which you'll see very shortly. So now let's get to the actual picks themselves. The top 2 picks are pretty much set in stone. Trevor Lawrence to the Jags and Zach Wilson to the Jets. I don't think there's going to be any discussions of those picks not being either of those guys in the next week. So we'll just move on here to pick 3. I had the Niners selecting Justin Fields. In my last 2 mock drafts, I actually had this being Trey Lance, and I could definitely see it being Trey Lance, but right now my gut tells me it Fields. I know that all of the mock drafts and all of the analysts are saying this is going to be Mac Jones. All of the rumors are pointing to Mac Jones. I still don't see it, and I'll believe it when it happens, but I still think it will be one of Fields or Lance, and I'm not sure which out of these 2 it will be, but I'm convinced it will not be Mac Jones. I just can't buy it. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I don't see the Niners trading all of that to move up for a quarterback who has athletic limitations and is far more similar to Jimmy Garoppolo than either Fields or Lance. I think the reason why the Niners did this is they want to have Kyle Shanahan getting an opportunity to work with a quarterback who may be a little bit more raw, but has the elite physical upside. And I think Fields and Lance may not be as polished as, say, a Mac Jones, but both of them have a far larger ceiling. So again, I could see it being either one of these guys. My gut is just telling me right now it's Fields, but tomorrow it could tell me it's Trey Lance. I really could see this going either way. Personally, I would pick Justin Fields here, although I don't think Trey Lance will be a bad selection either. Pick 4, we've got our first trade of the day. I think the Denver Broncos are not going to be satisfied with Drew Lock. I think they're actually a fairly reasonable destination for a guy like Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones' best bet is going to a team who has a good roster, like the Denver Broncos, and I think they would not be a bad landing spot for Mac at all. But I think they can get someone better, like a Trey Lance. So I had the Broncos moving up from 9 to 4. I don't think Atlanta's going to pick a quarterback. I think they should. If I was the Falcons, I would pick Trey Lance here. But since I don't think they will, the next best option is to trade out rather than staying at this pick. If they do stay at this pick, I would imagine it would be probably Kyle Pitts. If I were to guess, maybe they could consider a Penei Sewell, maybe they could consider a Jamar Chase. But if they don't pick a quarterback, I imagine they're going to try to trade this. I imagine the Broncos will want to move up and get Trey Lance, who can compete with Drew Lock pretty early on. Obviously, Lance is still quite raw. I don't think the Broncos should rush him in. That's my only concern here, is if Drew Lock starts playing poorly, then maybe they might push Lance into the fire a little bit too early. But other than that, I think this will be a great pick for them. 5 through 8 are the exact same I had in my last mock. Chase to the Bengals, Pitts going to the Dolphins, Penei Sewell to the Lions, and Rashawn Slater to the Panthers. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here with these because, again, it's the same ones I had. But for the Bengals' sake, I know they can use an offensive lineman, but I think having a game-changing receiver like Jamar Chase would make a bigger impact than, say, an elite upside offensive lineman like Penei Sewell, because Penei Sewell alone will not fix their offensive line. I still think they need a few more pieces, and there's still plenty of offensive line depth on day 2. So I still think the Bengals have an opportunity to improve the line and still get a generational receiver talent in Chase. Dolphins at 6, I think they want the best playmaker on the board with Chase gone. I imagine that will be Kyle Pitts. They could consider Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. Probably not Smith, maybe Waddle. But for right now, I do think this will be Kyle Pitts. Lions at 7, if they don't move back, I think it just has to be the best player on the board. The Lions have too many holes. I understand the wide receiver position is really rough. I'm a Lions fan myself for what it's worth, but I mean, Tyrell Williams as your wide receiver 1 is not good. So I would not be upset with either of the Alabama receivers here, but I think since the Lions are just entering a new rebuild, I think they just want the best player on the board, and I think that could be Penei Sewell, who does fit a hole at right tackle because Vaitai is not it. And then Panthers at 8, they are no longer searching for a quarterback, in my opinion. Since they traded Sam Darnold and took his 5th-year option, I think they are committed to him. So I think they're going to try to help him out here with Rashawn Slater. I think there are some teams who do like Slater better than Sewell, and it wouldn't totally surprise me to see Slater go higher than Sewell, but for right now, I still think Penei Sewell will go before him. But I think if, say, the Bengals or the Dolphins really like Rashawn Slater and they pick him even with Penei Sewell on the board, it wouldn't totally surprise me. At pick 9, I think the Falcons here, if they move back, probably want to go with the best defensive player on the board. And for me, that is Patrick Surtain II, the cornerback out of Alabama. It seems like their first-round pick, A.J. Terrell, appears to be a good player. I wasn't a huge fan of that pick, but looks like I'm wrong. He actually was quite solid, but him alone is not enough. Surtain is the best corner in this draft, probably the best defensive player in this draft as well, and I think this would be a really solid pick. Cowboys at 10 get J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. Very solid pick for them. Corner is definitely a need. I think there are some teams who could have Horn higher on their board than Surtain. That wouldn't totally surprise me. I think Surtain's a better prospect, but I do think J.C. Horn is quite good as well. So not a whole ton of surprises here in the top 10, but this is the first one that I think people are going to be a little bit surprised about. Giants at 11 select Elijah Vera Tucker. He is an interior offensive lineman out of USC. He can play tackle. He can play guard. I think he's best suited at guard, and I think he could be a really good plug-and-play guy right there for a long time in this league. We know Dave Gettleman likes the hog mollies. I don't think they would go D-line here. I think they would more likely go O-line, and I think Elijah Vera Tucker actually makes a lot more sense here than people would think. Eagles at 12, they get their choice of the Alabama receivers. Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle are still here. Devontae Smith's weight appears to be a concern for some as he weighed in at 166 pounds. That was announced yesterday. Now, obviously, that is light. I'm not going to disagree with that. But he played at 170 throughout the season, so everybody's been viewing him as a top 10 pick when he's 170. Now that he's 166, it seems like a lot of people in the draft community are in a frenzy. I am not. I still think Devontae Smith is an outstanding player. He is still my wide receiver 3. I think this would be a good pick for the Eagles. I don't think he's the best receiver on the board, but I think this would be a solid choice for them. The guy who is the best receiver on the board, in my opinion, is Alabama's Jalen Waddle. And there have been rumors the past few weeks that the Arizona Cardinals would like to move up for a premium pass catcher. I do not believe that's smoke. I believe that's true. Will the Cardinals be able to make a move? I don't know, but I do think that makes a lot of sense that they want to add another elite weapon. So I have them moving up to 13 here at the Chargers. LA will be receiving pick 16, 160, and a third rounder next year. The Cardinals will also be receiving a late rounder from the Chargers this year. So I think this is a fine move for both sides. For Arizona, you move up, you get your guy in Jalen Waddle, and for the Chargers, you get a nice haul and pick the guy at 16 who would have been the pick at 13. So let's talk about Waddle to the Cardinals here. I think this would make a lot of sense. I know they have a lot of big names at receiver, but the only guy who's a legitimate threat, in my opinion, is DeAndre Hopkins, who is the best receiver in the league, in my opinion. But behind him, there are a lot of question marks. Christian Kirk is a fine slot receiver. He's nothing special, but he's an okay player. Andy Isabella hasn't really turned out to much. AJ Green is just not good anymore. And I think if they were to get Waddle here, I think he would be the second best receiver on their team day one. So I understand they have bigger needs, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals just make another big balls-to-the-wall move because it seems like they're really going all in on the present. We've got ourselves another trade at 14. The Washington football team will be moving up with the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings get the same guy at 19, who I would have given them at 14. Minnesota also receives pick 74 and a fourth rounder next year. The Vikings love to accumulate mid-round and late-round draft picks, so seeing them trade down really would not surprise me. And Mac Jones has fallen here. The Washington football team will take advantage and select him. I think there's a good shot Jones goes a lot higher than this. Had Denver stayed at 9, let's say, and Atlanta stayed at 4. Let's say the Falcons pick Trey Lance at 4, and the Broncos roll up at 9. I think Mac Jones there would have made a lot of sense. I think we could see a team like New England or Washington or Chicago or somebody like that. Hell, maybe even Pittsburgh would consider a move up for a guy like Mac Jones. But I think jumping the Patriots right here would make a lot of sense for the Washington football team to get their guy. They do not have their franchise quarterback on the roster. I'm sorry, Taylor Heineke. I'm sorry, Fitzmagic, but neither of them are the long-term guy, and Mac Jones can be that. New England at 15. This is a little bit of a surprise pick, I imagine, for many, but I have them getting Zaven Collins. Collins will be the first linebacker off the board here before Micah Parsons, before Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I think Zaven Collins will be a great fit for what Bill Belichick likes. Bill Belichick does not care about draft projections. He picks the guys who he thinks makes the most sense for his team. I understand offense may make more sense here, but we know Bill Belichick likes his elite defenses. They could look corner here, but I think Zaven Collins will be a pretty nice fit for their defenses, their linebacking core, specifically Dante Hightower gets a little bit older. And then at 16, Christian Darrisaw to the Chargers. Not a whole lot to explain here. They need a starting left tackle pretty badly, and I think Darrisaw will be able to hop right in and be a steady contributor. He would have been the pick at 13, so the Chargers added those extra assets from the Cardinals for 3, pretty much. I'm very curious to see what the Raiders do because, well, to put it nicely, they're a pretty confusing team, and I don't mean that in a positive way. Doesn't really seem like those guys know what they're doing over there. I think the seats for John Gruden and Mike Mayock are getting warmer. I could see them be a little bit desperate. I could see them pull out all the stops for a big trade up for a blue chip prospect, specifically a quarterback, which I don't think they should do because I think Derek Carr is really solid. But in this scenario, that doesn't happen, although it wouldn't surprise me as much as it would surprise someone else. Instead, I had them selecting Christian Barmore, and it seems like Barmore's stock is higher around the league than it is in the media, and that does make sense. I do think he's a really good player, and he's by far the best interior defensive lineman in this class. After him, there is a pretty noticeable drop. So I'm not saying he's going to go per se in the top 10, but I do think he'll go higher than people expect, and I think here the Raiders makes a lot of sense. Dolphins at 18. This is a selection I like a lot. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of my favorite players in this draft. Linebacker, hybrid player out of Notre Dame. Having him in a Brian Flores defense is going to be so much fun. I'm really curious to see what the Dolphins will be able to do for him if this is the pick they would make. I would be really intrigued by this fit. And honestly, I want to see it happen. Make it happen, Miami. Pick 19, Jalen Phillips to the Minnesota Vikings. Phillips is a very polarizing player, but when healthy, he's arguably a top fringe 5 to 10 talent in this class. Had it not been for the medical concerns, you can make a legit case that he's the best defensive player in the entire class. I still do have him as the first edge rusher off the board, and I think talent-wise, he's by far the best edge rusher in this class, but obviously the medical question marks could push him down, but I could see the Minnesota Vikings here making a big risk for a guy who could be really good. Pick 20, Tevin Jenkins to the Bears. They need a lot of help on offense. They could use quarterback. They could use wide receiver, but I have them addressing the offensive line. I think there's a good chance Tevin Jenkins is not on the board here, but if he is, I think the Chicago Bears would be happy to make this pick. Ravens at 21. Obviously, I talked about the Orlando Brown trade earlier. I have them selecting wide receiver Terrace Marshall out of LSU. I think they would like to add another playmaker. They could consider offensive line here for sure. But after Terrace Marshall and Rashad Bateman, there is a noticeable drop, at least in my opinion, with the receivers in this class. I know there are some people who have guys like Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore higher than Terrace Marshall. I'm a big Terrace Marshall guy. He's my wide receiver 5. So I could see the Ravens picking him here rather than at 27. And I think this would be a nice pick for them. Rashad Bateman going to the Titans. They need help at receiver. I really like Rashad Bateman. He's my wide receiver 4. They don't have a lot other than A.J. Brown, so I think you plug him in as your other starter alongside A.J. Brown. I think that'd be a nice pick. Elijah Moore going to the Jets. This is your Jamison Crowder replacement. I had the Jets trade Crowder to the Browns earlier in the video, so if you did skip over it, you can go back and see the details to that trade. I do think the Jets have talent at receiver. Corey Davis is a real good player. Denzel Mims, I think, is going to take big steps here in year 2, but with no more Crowder, they do need a new slot guy. I think Elijah Moore can do more than, no pun intended, he can do more than just being a slot receiver, and I think this would be a fine pick for them. I know you may think that, oh, they're replacing Jamison Crowder here with one of their first-round picks when they're only getting a third-rounder in exchange for Crowder. I know that's what you're probably thinking, but Elijah Moore is a real good player, and I think he obviously has a lot more long-term upside than 2 years of Jamison Crowder. Creed Humphrey going to the Steelers, a little bit of a surprise pick here. I know all the signs are pointing to Najee Harris. That would not surprise me in the slightest, but they still have not replaced Marquise Pouncey, and I think Creed Humphrey's going to get picked higher than people expect. I think Humphrey's a really good prospect, and I think it would be hard for the Steelers to pass him up here at 24 if he is on the board. We've got a few big moves on this slide, but starting off at 25, the Jags are going to stay put and add Trayvon Moehrig to the secondary. He is a safety out of TCU. I really am curious to see where Moehrig goes because it's kind of a similar situation with Christian Barmore, where Barmore is far and away the best interior defensive lineman in a weak interior D-line class. I think the same can be said about Moehrig, at least in my opinion. I think Barmore is like the consensus top defensive lineman, or I guess at least consensus top interior defensive lineman. I don't know if you can say the same about Moehrig. I think there may be people who like guys like Richie Grant or Javon Holland more, but I think Trayvon Moehrig is the best safety in this class, and I'm curious to see how much higher he goes compared to the other safeties. Jacksonville at 25, I think, would make sense. They did sign Rayshon Jenkins to a pretty big contract, but I don't think it hurts to add more players in that secondary. I think Moehrig and Jenkins will be a pretty solid duo. Kwity Paye, edge rusher, Michigan, to the Cleveland Browns. Paye probably won't fall this far, but this is how the board played out. I don't think Cleveland's going to complain. Azeez Ojulari, edge rusher out of Georgia to the Ravens. I understand they traded Orlando Brown, and I understand they did not use either of their first-round picks on offensive linemen, but sometimes it's not just about need, it's also about value. Terrace Marshall at 21, I think is good value. I don't think a ton of people might agree with that. And then here at 27, Azeez Ojulari as well, great value. I think he's a great fit, and he'd be the perfect replacement for Matt Judon. 28, we've got a trade. The Eagles will be moving up with the Saints. Philly will be trading picks 37 and a future third rounder in order to do so. And since the Eagles probably aren't going to be very good next year, that's probably going to be a high third round pick. I had the Eagles selecting Caleb Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. The Caleb Farley slide will come to an end. He's a legit option for them at pick 12. And now he falls here to 28. I could see them really trying to make a move like this. Obviously, there are a lot of medical question marks with Caleb Farley, but when healthy, he's a really good prospect. And for the Saints, you only move down 9 spots. You add another third-round pick. I don't have a problem with this move for them. 29, Greg Newsome, cornerback, Northwestern to the Packers. I could see him going a lot earlier than this, but the Packers are definitely not going to complain. They need another corner alongside Jair Alexander. Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher, Miami to the Bills. I know all the talk has been that Rousseau will fall out of the first round, possibly even falling out of the top 50 picks. I still think there's a solid shot he could go in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rousseau drop is true, but it could also be smoke. And I could see the Buffalo Bills possibly taking a swing for the fences here, hoping that Rousseau can be the missing piece for their team. At 31 and 32, I have the pair of trades. The two teams who made the Super Bowl last year will be moving down. It's the Jets who move up to 31. I have the Chiefs receiving picks 34 and 107. The Jets will also add a future 7th round pick as well. And I have them selecting Najee Harris, running back out of Alabama. The Jets still do not have a clear lead running back on their team. I think they're going to try to win games next year. And I think Najee Harris has the chance to be a really, really good running back right off the jump. And then at 32, the Raiders will be moving back up into the first round. The Bucs will be receiving pick 48 and a second rounder next year. So for Tampa Bay, you add a nice pick next season and you still stay in the top 50. And for the Raiders, the Micah Parsons slide will come to an end. There have been a lot of question marks with Parsons about his character, and it seems like a lot of those concerns were really alleviated in the past few days. Is alleviated a word? I don't know, but it seems like a lot of those concerns have been brought up as of recent, and I could see a Micah Parsons drop here. And I think a team like the Raiders, who doesn't really have a whole lot to lose, I could see them making a move like this. Now on to the second round, Kadarius Toney to the Jags. This is a pairing I have had very often, and I'm going to stick by it. I know this may not seem super smart on the surface, considering they have Laviska Shenault, who does share some similarities, but I don't think it hurts to add more weapons, and a lot of people think Kadarius Toney is a surefire first-round pick. I don't think so, and I personally don't think he should go in round 1. I think he's a solid prospect. I think he's more of a second-round guy, though, and I think this will be fine value for the Jags. Chiefs at 34 pick Alex Leatherwood. This would have been the same pick I gave them at 31. The question with him is, can he be an actual starting tackle in this league? I think he'll be a good guard, but it's unclear if he'll be a tackle, and the Chiefs are going to have to figure that out, but I do think he is a solid prospect. Javonte Williams, the second running back off the board. I know what you're thinking. What am I doing here? Over Travis Etienne. I could see Etienne going ahead of Williams. I could see Williams going ahead of Etienne. I think the top 3 running backs in this class you could almost put in any order. I think Travis Etienne would be a great pick here, but Javonte Williams is also a really, really good player. Etienne may provide more as a receiver, but Javonte Williams is a tough, sturdy runner. He'll be the lead rusher right in that Falcons backfield day 1, and I think that'd be a solid pick. Travis Etienne won't have to wait too much longer to hear his name, though. He goes with the very next pick to Miami Dolphins. Again, you could literally swap these two. Really don't have an issue with either one going ahead of the other, but they're both really, really good players, and I think the Falcons and Dolphins would be pretty excited. Kelvin Joseph to the Saints. I think he's going to go earlier than people predict. I had him going to the Saints in the first round on my last mock. Now they moved down and still land him. He's still a little bit raw, but I do really like his upside. Quinn Miners to the Bengals. I understand that Trey Hopkins, the center, is one of the bright spots on Cincinnati's offensive line, but he is coming off a knee injury, and Quinn Miners can play center as well as guard. I think he does have that positional flexibility, so I think this would be a fine pick. We've got ourselves another trade at 39. The Patriots move up. Carolina will be receiving picks 46 and 120, and New England will pick up Joe Tryon, edge rusher out of Washington. I think Tryon is your prototypical Patriots edge rusher. You know they like to pick players with positional flexibility and versatility, and so far I think they've done a nice job of improving their front seven with Zaven Collins and now Tryon. Falcons at 40 select Jason Oweh, edge rusher of Penn State. They got this pick thanks to the Broncos moving up for Trey Lance. I could definitely see Oweh going in the first round. I could see him going in the top half of the first round because he has that type of upside, but he's just too much of a gamble. And I think unless a team like the Giants were to just totally take a shot on him, I don't see him going in, say, the top 20 picks. I think there are a few teams, specifically Baltimore, who could look at him afterwards, possibly the Jaguars even. But I have him falling here to 40, and I don't think the Falcons are going to complain because they're getting a player with arguably top 10 upside. Lions at 41 select Baron Browning, linebacker, Ohio State. The Lions need a lot of help at linebacker, and there are a few good choices here still on the board, but I think Baron Browning will be a nice fit here. He can make an immediate impact, and I'd be pretty happy with this pick for my team. Peyton Turner to the New York Giants. Again, Dave Gettleman loves the hog mollies, the big guys up front. I think Peyton Turner could be a really solid pass rusher for this team. It seems like his stock has kind of risen a little bit as of recent, and I think that'd be a fine pick. Eric Stokes to the Niners here at 43. I think this is a pretty easy choice for them. Stokes is a really, really good prospect, and the Niners need corner really bad, so I think that'd be a good pick. Pat Freiermuth to the Dallas Cowboys. I could see them wanting to add another weapon. Dalton Schultz is an okay tight end. He's nothing special. He's not bad either. I think they do have bigger needs than tight end, but the value here at 44 is really good. Here at 45, we've got a trade. The Washington football team moves up with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags move down 6 spots to 51. They also receive pick 244, along with a 4th rounder next year. This doesn't seem like a ton for Jacksonville, but the guy who they would have picked at 45 was still on the board at 51. The player I have Washington trading up for here is Jamin Davis. So the football team getting aggressive early with a pair of trade-ups in the first 2 rounds. From what I've seen, it seems like the media is higher than the league on Jamin Davis. After Davis's pro day, he started to get legit first-round buzz. I mocked him in the first round, I believe, of my last mock. But it seems like the league views him more as a high to mid-second-round pick. And that's how the board fell out here. At 46, the Panthers just moved down with New England in the Joe Tryon trade. Carolina gets Asante Samuel Jr. I really like this pick. I think Samuel's a really, really good prospect. And I think this makes a lot of sense for them. Tyson Campbell, cornerback, Georgia, to the Chargers. They do need some help in the secondary. Casey Hayward and Desmond King are out the door. I know King was traded at the deadline last year, but he was still technically on the roster at the beginning of the season. Chris Harris is getting older. Rayshawn Jenkins, even though he's not a corner, he is gone as well. So they need to revamp the secondary a little bit, and I think Campbell will be a nice pick. And then Bucks at 48. I am really intrigued by this selection. Kenneth Gainwell, running back out of Memphis. At 32, he probably would not have been the pick for the Bucks. They could have gone for one of the other running backs. They could have gone possibly edge rusher. Jason Owe would have made sense there. But I think they want to add pieces who can contribute immediately. They're definitely in a win-now mode. And Kenneth Gainwell is a really intriguing prospect, in my opinion. This is a guy who has experience at running back and slot receiver. The Bucs don't really have their set slot receiver. Antonio Brown is not back on the roster, or any roster for that matter. Scotty Miller is an okay player, but I think if you can add someone who has the potential to be better than Scotty Miller in a Kenneth Gainwell, I think that makes a lot of sense. And coming out of the backfield, the Bucs need a receiving threat at running back because Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones are not really receiving threats. Ifeatu Melifonwu, cornerback out of Syracuse to the Cardinals. Arizona needs to address the cornerback situation because it's kind of ugly. I did not have them going corner in round 1. I had them moving up for Jalen Waddle. They still have their second-round pick, and they're going to use it on Melifonwu, who's a lengthy, lean, and athletic corner. I think this pick would make sense. Tylan Wallace going to the Miami Dolphins, adding yet another playmaker for the offense. I really like this draft for the Dolphins. In the first round, they picked Kyle Pitts and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And so far in round 2, Travis Etienne and now Tylan Wallace. I think Miami's hitting this one out of the park. It seems like all of my mock drafts tend to be really good for the Dolphins. I guess they're in a favorable position where they're in a situation where a lot of the players who fit them and they could use happen to be on the board. So it's kind of hard to give Miami a bad mock draft. 51, Samuel Cosmi to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, as I said earlier, this is the guy I would have given them at 45. Got to give Trevor Lawrence some protection. I think that'd be a fine pick. We have a wild card here at 52. Davis Mills, quarterback out of Stanford. I know this is a little bit of a surprise. I understand that the Bears appear to be committed to Andy Dalton. Whether they are or not is one thing, but they claim that they are. But it seems like the Davis Mills buzz has been increasing the past few weeks, and I could see the Bears possibly making this move. I don't think he makes it out of the second round. 53, Elijah Molden, cornerback out of Washington to the Titans. They lost a lot of pieces in the secondary. They lost a lot of pieces on the defense in general, but specifically the secondary, I think Molden could help shore some things up. Milton Williams, interior defensive lineman out of Louisiana Tech, to the Colts. The Colts have had not a lot of success as of recent drafting defensive linemen. A few second-rounders such as Ben Benagood, Tyquan Lewis. Neither of them have become great players. And I think Milton Williams could possibly change that trend. His stock has definitely been increasing as of late. Trey Sermon, running back, Ohio State to the Steelers. They need an early down running back because they do not currently have that on their roster. I think Trey Sermon can be an early down guy. I don't think he'll ever be an elite running back. There are a few small medical question marks with him, but I think he could be a solid early down back early in his career. And then Liam Eichenberg at 56. There's a very small chance he falls this far, but that's just how the board played out. I would not be surprised at all to see him go in round 1. I think had the Colts stayed at 21, you could consider him there. The Ravens could consider him. The Chiefs could consider him. There are a lot of teams who could have looked his way. But the Seahawks definitely will not be complaining. They will be running this pick up to the podium. Let's round out round number 2 here, starting with the Rams at 57. Another offensive lineman who probably won't fall this far. Dylan Raduns out of North Dakota State. I think this will be pretty solid value. The Rams don't have a ton of holes, but I do think they could use to improve the offensive line. The Ravens kind of get screwed here because Liam Eichenberg and Dylan Raduns will make a ton of sense here at 58, especially considering they have not addressed offensive tackle. But I do not have to go with an offensive lineman here. Had Eichenberg or Raduns still on the board, that probably would have been the pick. But instead, I have them getting Jamar Johnson out of Indiana. I do think they wouldn't mind possibly adding some more pieces into the secondary. And it seems like Johnson's stock has increased the past few months. Nick Bolton probably won't fall this far, but again, how the board played out. The Browns are not going to complain. They're going to scoop him up here at 59. I think this is pretty good value. Amari Rodgers at 60 to the Saints. I think they could use another high floor receiver here. I think they could use some more proven players at that position rather than just Michael Thomas. Aaron Robinson, cornerback, UCF to the Bills. Plug him right in the slot, and boom, nice pick. Levi Onwuzurike, interior defensive lineman out of Washington, going to the Green Bay Packers. Another guy who I don't think will fall this far, but the Packers are not going to complain. This has been a really good draft for Green Bay so far. Newsome in the first round, now Onwuzurike here. As a Packer hater, I hope this does not happen. But for the Packers fans out there, congratulations. Rondale Moore to the Chiefs at 63. The Chiefs are just going to say screw it and add another receiver with freakish speed. There are a lot of question marks with Rondale Moore. His size, his health, his route tree, but what you cannot question is his ability with the ball in his hands and specifically his lightning quickness. So I could see the Chiefs just saying F it and adding another ridiculously fast playmaker. Ronnie Perkins to the Bucks at 64 is really good value. I had him going in the first round in my last mock to the Browns, and I could still see that being a legitimate possibility, but he falls here to 64. Excellent value pick by Tampa Bay. Now on to the third round. Joseph Osai here at 65 to the Jaguars. It seems like his stock has dropped a little bit the past few months. I still think he should probably be a second round pick, but I think the Jags would like to add another piece to the pass rush. They have invested first round picks in Josh Allen and Kayvon Chason, but I don't think it hurts to add more. Ellerson Smith, edge rusher out of Northern Iowa, to the New York Jets. This is a guy who hasn't been talked about a lot, but I do think he is a really solid sleeper, and I think he could go earlier than people expect. Jabril Cox to the Texans. I understand that there was like a period of time where at least I thought Jabril Cox had a legit shot of being a first-round pick. It seems like his stock has kind of fluctuated a little bit, now back down to earth. I could see him going early in the second round, but with the rise of Jamin Davis and other players such as Baron Browning and others improving their stock, I do think that hurts Cox a little bit, but I think this is great value, and the Texans would be lucky to have him here at this spot. Kellen Mond to the Falcons at 68. Another surprise quarterback pick. It seems like there's been a lot of Kellen Mond buzz as of recent. It doesn't seem like he's going to drop past day 2. I could see the Falcons picking a quarterback outside of round 1. And Matt Ryan is 36 years old. He's not getting any younger. So I could see the Falcons possibly making a low-risk move here in the third round, saying, screw it. We might as well take a guy like Kellen Mond, see if he's a pro or not. 69, nice. I have Wyatt Davis going to the Bengals, and at 70, Landon Dickerson to the Eagles. I'm talking about these picks together because they pretty much go hand in hand. Wyatt Davis and Landon Dickerson are two really good players. Talent-wise, they're arguably fringe first-rounders, but there are some medical question marks. I could see them going a lot earlier than this, particularly Dickerson, But they fell here, and these two teams are not going to complain. The Bengals need more pieces for the offensive line. I know the Eagles have Jason Kelsey, but he has hinted at retirement in the past. So I do think that the Eagles just need to focus on value, and Landon Dickerson is great value. Tyler Shelvin, interior defensive lineman out of LSU to the Denver Broncos. I think they could use some more pieces in the middle of that defense. They still have a few small holes that they could use to address. I think Shelvin would be a solid pick here. And Dyami Brown to the Lions. I did not have Dyami Brown fall here this far on purpose, but if this did happen in real life, I'd be pretty stoked. I really like Dyami Brown. I think he's a top 50 player in this draft class. This would be an awesome selection for the Lions here in the third round. Panthers at 73 select Pete Werner, linebacker, Ohio State. I think this will be a pretty solid pick for them. They could use some more help on the linebacking core, and it seems like we're reaching that next tier of linebackers with the, I would say, third round level players such as like Pete Werner, Monty Rice, maybe Dylan Moses possibly. Chaz Surratt as well, I think, would be in that discussion. Vikings at 74, Jalen Mayfield, offensive lineman out of Michigan. His stock has really dipped the past few weeks. I could see him dropping this far. The question with him is, does he have the size and length to be a starting tackle in this league? And I think the Vikings would prefer he does, as they do need help at tackle, and as you see in a few picks, they will be going with a guard. So if Jalen Mayfield can be a tackle, great. If not, you could always plug him into guard. That's not the end of the world. Janarius Robinson, edge rusher, Florida State to the Cowboys. His stock has really risen the past few weeks. I think this would be a solid pick for them. They could use some more guys going after the quarterback. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC to the Giants. I understand they signed Kenny Golladay, but that does not mean they don't have to add some more playmakers. Sterling Shepard's an okay player, but questions with his health sometimes, and I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, he could play that slot just fine. He can also play the outside as well. So the Giants have 4 really good receivers when healthy, obviously. Ben Cleveland, guard, Georgia to the Chargers. This is a solid value selection. Christian Darrisaw alone will not fix for offensive line, but Darrisaw and Cleveland together will certainly make it a lot better. Kendrick Green, guard, Illinois to the Vikings, doubling down here on offensive line. It never hurts to improve the O-line, hoping at least one of these 2 third-round guys hit. And then the Raiders with back-to-back picks, they get Richie Grant at 79. I could see him going a lot earlier than this, but the Raiders, they're not going to complain, but instead they will pick him up. And then Brady Christensen, tackle, BYU. He's one of the older prospects in this draft. I believe he is currently 24, and he did have a ridiculously good pro day, but I'm not convinced that he's pushed himself up into the second round yet. At 81, we've got ourselves a trade, and it's actually an inter-division trade. The New England Patriots will be trading up here with the Miami Dolphins. So the Fins will move back 15 spots. They receive pick 96 along with pick 139. I think Javon Holland would be a great fit in the New England secondary. He's a really versatile safety who can also play nickel corner. And I think this would be a great pairing of team and player. I think Bill Belichick would have a lot of fun with him. I understand that these two teams probably will not want to trade with division rivals, but if New England can get their guy, I think they'd be willing to do this. And for the Dolphins, they did not have a clear and obvious pick here, so why not add an extra late 4th round pick? Nico Collins, wide receiver, Michigan to the Washington football team. Nico Collins is definitely one of my guys in this class. He's definitely going to be a top 50 player for me. I don't know exactly where in the top 50, but he'll be in the top 50. I think he's a really, really good prospect. This would be great value. Emir Smith-Marset, wide receiver, Iowa to the Bears. He's a really interesting player. There are some off-the-field question marks with him, but on the field, I think he's real good, and I could see him going earlier than people project him currently. Devon Diablo, safety, Virginia Tech to the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, they have a lot of holes all over the place, so I think if they can just draft really good football players, that has to be the goal. Tommy Tremble, tight end, Notre Dame to the Titans. I do think they could use some more tight end help, especially with Jonnu Smith out the door. Brevin Jordan here would work, but it seems like his stock is dipping after a poor pro day performance, and it seems like Tommy Tremble's stock, meanwhile, is on the rise. Paulson Adebo, cornerback, Stanford to the Jets. I feel like he's one of my sleepers. I really liked him entering last year's class. He decided to stay in school. It seems like his stock has dipped a little bit, but he was actually an opt-out. So you could argue that he probably should have just declared last year since he didn't play this year, but obviously the pandemic wasn't really predictable. Hindsight's 2020, but I do think this would be a great pick here. Israel Mukwamu, cornerback, South Carolina to the Steelers. He's a tall, lean, and lengthy guy. The Steelers lost some corners in the offseason, so this would certainly help him out. And then Josh Myers, center, Ohio State to the Rams. Again, improving the offensive line. They got Dylan Raduns in the second round, now getting Myers here in the third round. Jets at 89 select Dylan Moses, linebacker, Alabama. They got this trade in the Jamison Crowder deal, which I talked about earlier in the video. Moses was once a projected first-round pick, but his stock has fallen, mainly due to him not playing as well and medical question marks. He just seems like a very uncertain player, and his stock, in my opinion, is pretty uncertain as well. I'm really curious to see where he ends up going. Trey Brown, cornerback of Oklahoma to the Vikings. He had a strong senior day performance, and when Mike Zimmer has the opportunity to pick a talented corner, it's going to be hard to stop him. Andre Cisco, safety, Syracuse to the Browns. Cisco has a lot of upside, and I think the Browns are just kind of saying a screw it pick here. Why not take a shot? They paid John Johnson big money. They also have Grant Delpit coming back from injury and Ronnie Harrison, so safety doesn't seem like a big need, but we've never seen Grant Delpit play an NFL snap, and Ronnie Harrison's on the last year of his deal, so I do think safety is more of a need there than people think. Dwayne Eskridge, wide receiver, Western Michigan, to the Packers, adding themselves a playmaker. Eskridge not the biggest, but outside of Devontae Adams, they don't have a lot there at wide receiver. Hamza Nasir-Ladin to the Bills. This is a team and player pairing that I've had pretty often. I think it makes a lot of sense. I've been on the Hamza Nasir-Ladin bandwagon for a while, and I like this pick a lot for them. Trey Smith, guard, Tennessee to the Chiefs. He's a really good player when he can stay on the field. There are some medical concerns, but when he's on the field, he's great. And then Cornell Powell, another playmaker for the Bucs offense. Again, I think they're going to be focusing on win-now moves rather than looking for positions that could be long-term needs. They added Kenneth Gainwell in the second round along with Ronnie Perkins. So now adding another playmaker here to the offense of Cornell Powell. Tampa Bay's offense is going to be even better than it was last year, even with losing Antonio Brown. Dolphins at 96 select Stone Forsythe, tackle, Florida. They just got this pick from New England. Miami didn't really have a clear selection at 81, so that's why I had them willing to trade with a division rival. I think this would be a solid pick. His stock has really increased as of recent. Walker Little is a very interesting player. I really have no clue where he's going to go. If he somehow slipped into the first round, that wouldn't shock me. If he went in like the 5th or 6th round, that also wouldn't surprise me. Little was once regarded as a first-round pick, but due to medical stuff and opting out, he has not played, for the most part at all, the past 2 years outside of like a couple games in 2019, I believe. So, certainly a question mark, but he could be a very interesting player, and it might be hard to tempt the Chargers to not pick him. So the Chargers really improving their offensive line. Little does not have to start right away because they have Darisaw and Brian Bulaga, but if Little ends up being good, he could be the Brian Bulaga replacement. Carlos Basham, edge rusher out of Wake Forest to the Saints. This is good value. They could use some more guys going after the quarterback. Davion Nixon, another good value pick. Interior defensive lineman out of Iowa. Probably won't fall this far, but again, that's just how the board played out. Dallas isn't going to complain, however. They do need some more guys in the middle of that D-line. Spencer Brown, tackle, Northern Iowa to the Titans. Dennis Kelly is no longer on the team. He got cut. I think they could use some more help at tackle. Spencer Brown is a little bit raw, but he does have great potential. Osa Odigizua, interior defensive lineman out of UCLA to the Lions. I promise I'm not biased. I understand De'Ami Brown and Osa Odigizua are two of my favorite players in this year's draft class, and I had them both going to the Lions, but again, that's how the board plays out. The picks and fits make sense, so that's why I'm going to do it. It's not biased, it just happens to make sense, but if the Lions had this third round in real life, that'd be pretty nice. Adekombo Ogundeji, edge rusher, Notre Dame to the Niners. That's a very fun name to say. I think they might want to add another piece going after the quarterback, and I think his stock has been rising pretty nicely the past few weeks. Could see him in day 2. Monty Rice, linebacker, Georgia to the LA Rams. It seems like they know how to find diamond in the rough players on the defense. I think Monty Rice could be another example. Hunter Loyne, tight end, Boston College to the Ravens. Another tight end over Brevin Jordan. Yes, I know, a little bit surprising. I have Jordan falling to day 3. The Ravens of Mark Andrews is real good, but I think they might want to add another tight end. They like to run 2 tight end sets. And then Tyree Gillespie, safety out of Missouri to the Saints. They need some more pieces in the secondary. I think Gillespie is a pretty underrated player. So that will end the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of the mock draft. Again, plenty of draft content coming out these next few days. Hope you guys are excited. I'm out. Peace.